All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome, everyone. If you're joining us today, chances are you're gearing up to build something new. Maybe you're launching a product, or perhaps you're just looking to refine an existing strategy. And if you're doing any of that, you already know the foundation has got to be absolutely rock solid. So in this explainer, we're going straight to the source to detail the critical foundational elements of early-stage product strategy. We are going to map out exactly how you get from a completely blank slate to a product that people actually want, and honestly, just as importantly, a product that can actually reach them. Let's get started. Our source text for today is actually just a single packed sentence. In this module, participants will evaluate how to segment customers and develop a minimum viable product, MVP, with the product channel fit. That's it, just 31 words. But we are going to act as a giant magnifying glass today to unpack the massive amount of strategy hiding right there. Because honestly, this single sentence is practically a masterclass in early stage strategy if you know how to read it. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. So here is our roadmap for the explainer. First, the product strategy module. Second, customer segmentation and analysis. Third, the minimum viable product. Fourth, finding product channel fit. And finally, evaluating your product strategy. All right, kicking things off with section 1, the product strategy module, active evaluation. Notice how the source material doesn't say participants will read about or think about a strategy. It hits us with two incredibly active verbs, evaluate and develop. This is such a crucial distinction. Building a strategy requires deliberate, active evaluation and intentional development. It's a grueling, iterative process. You know, so many founders and teams fall right into the trap of that classic build it and they will come fallacy. They skip the evaluation phase entirely and just go straight to development, basing everything on completely unverified assumptions. And what happens then? Well, you burn through capital, you absolutely exhaust your team, and you launch a product that the market completely ignores. You have to actively and frankly aggressively evaluate your market, testing all your assumptions against reality long before you can ever hope to develop a product that works. It's really all about actively seeking out friction and understanding it. Moving right along to section 2, customer segmentation and analysis, defining the who. The text explicitly tells us to segment customers, but what does that actually demand of us in the real world? Well, it demands a bit of humility, to be honest. It's the stark realization that you simply cannot build a product for everyone. If you build for everyone, you're building for no one. Customer segmentation is the analytical process of evaluating exactly how to group and define a distinct target audience. And this goes way beyond basic demographics, like men aged 18 to 35. No, deep segmentation is highly behavioral and psychographic. It means finding a very specific group of people who are united by a singular burning pain point. For instance, your segment isn't just runners. Actually, scratch that. It's more like marathon runners with flat feet who are actively trying to break a 3-hour finish time and desperately struggle with arch pain. That is the level of hyper-specific analysis that must happen before a single line of code is written or a physical prototype is even thought about. If you don't clearly understand exactly who your customer is and what drives them, well, your product is fundamentally flawed from day one. So I've got to ask you, what comes after segmentation? Once you've deeply analyzed the market and grouped your target audience around that highly specific pain point we just talked about, what's the very next logical step? You figured out the who, so now you have to transition to deciding on the what. Which brings us to section 3, minimum viable product, or MVP, developing the what. The source text directly hooks these two ideas together. You segment customers and you develop a minimum viable product. And we are strictly using the sources framework here. The MVP is the literal physical outcome that you must develop as a direct response to your evaluation phase. The MVP doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It's a direct reflection of all that segmentation data you just gathered. It should strictly and uniquely address the core pain point of the specific group you identified and literally nothing else. It's basically a hypothesis brought to life, the foundational what, designed specifically to test the who. Breaking down this famous acronym reveals a really delicate balancing act. And let me tell you, it's incredibly difficult to execute in the real world. You have minimum, meaning you build absolutely only the essential features required to solve the problem. You have viable, meaning it actually has to function well enough to solve that problem and provide real value. And product, meaning it's a tangible thing you're actually putting out there into the market. The massive tension here is between minimum and viable, and it creates two super common traps. Trap number one is building something so minimum, like a basic landing page that doesn't actually do anything, that it isn't viable at all. Users can't experience the solution, so you just get a bunch of false negatives. Trap number two is overbuilding. Founders fall in love with their vision and spend 6 months and $100,000 adding all these features the customer never even asked for. That is absolutely no longer minimum, and it wastes massive amounts of time. The true art of the MVP is walking that tightrope, creating just enough of a product to validate your core assumption with your specific segment without wasting a single drop of excess effort. Let's move to section 4, finding product channel fit, the critical connection. The source text clearly dictates that we must develop the MVP with the product channel fit. That single word, with, is doing a ridiculous amount of heavy lifting here. It means the channel is not an afterthought. You cannot build a product in total isolation, polish it all up, and then hand it over to a marketing team to go figure out how to sell it. No way. The distribution channel actually dictates the very design of the product itself from the very beginning. The product and the way people discover and acquire that product are fundamentally, permanently intertwined. The product you've developed and the channel through which the customer requires it must seamlessly lock together, exactly like two puzzle pieces. Let's look at a real-world scenario of how this breaks down in practice. Say you decide to build a highly complex piece of enterprise B2B software that costs $100,000 a year. Okay, that's your product. But then you decide your channel is going to be running Facebook ads directing people to a self-serve checkout page. That is a total, complete failure of product channel fit. Literally nobody buys a $100,000 software package via a self-serve checkout, right? A product at that price point with that level of complexity inherently requires a dedicated outbound sales team as its channel. Conversely, if your product is a $2 mobile game, you absolutely cannot afford a dedicated sales team. Your channel must be viral sharing or highly optimized low-cost app store ads. The mechanics, the pricing, and the complexity of the product completely dictate the channel, and the real-world realities of the channel strictly constrain what kind of product you can even build. They have to be in perfect harmony. And finally, Section 5, evaluating your product strategy, the complete picture. Here is our complete methodology, visually mapped out as a sequential relationship that we extracted from that single source sentence. As you can see, every step inherently relies on the success of the previous one. Step 1, you've got to segment your customers deeply so you know exactly whose pain you're resolving. Step 2, you develop your MVP based entirely on the specific, narrow needs of that exact segment, perfectly balancing the minimum with the viable. Step 3, you ensure alignment with the channel from day one, verifying that the economics and the design of the MVP you built can actually survive in the distribution channel required to reach the segment you identified. If you skip any single step here, the entire strategic bridge just collapses. To really solidify this structured learning, let's tie your deliberate actions directly back to your strategic goals. You actively evaluate to achieve deep customer analysis, and you develop your MVP with the ultimate goal of achieving product channel fit. The action and the outcome are permanently linked. It is such a wonderfully elegant framework hidden in just a few short words, providing an absolute foolproof checklist for early-stage development. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought, turning the module's core evaluation directly back onto you and your own projects. Think about it. Have you truly aligned your MVP with your channel? Or are you maybe building in a vacuum, just crossing your fingers and hoping the marketing will magically sort itself out later? Take these concepts, deeply segment your audience, keep your product minimum yet genuinely viable, and absolutely never lose sight of how it will reach the real world. Thank you so much for diving into all these details with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.